All right, so recording is stopped. Okay, so first, a little introduction as to who I am. My name is Micah Block. I am the lead technologist for Magellan within the sales organization, and I have worldwide responsibilities in everything Magellan. What we are going to cover today is a bunch of different topics that we actually have. We're going to do a little tour of knowledge bases, train knowledge bases, create authority files. We're going to use the REST API, set up some crawling jobs. We actually have a text mining framework, which we're going to share, and we're going to talk a little bit about customizing the pipeline configuration. Some of this is going to be hands-on. So if Roberto, I'm assuming that we actually shared the core file with them, the core directory.
Yes, the one that I created yesterday is shared with them.
Yep. Oh, so you can't see anything I'm doing because I haven't started sharing yet. So let's do that. In the share that we actually have, all the information that I'm going to do today is under the Magellan text mining folder. There's an architecture slide deck that I'm going to go through there. And then there's two labs, one on setting up the knowledge bases and authority files, and one is going to be the REST workshop. So we're going to cover a lot of different things and work on it that way. If there's any questions or anything while I'm talking, if you want to download all these files, feel free to do so. So to start with, I should close my email because otherwise I'm popping up. So to start with, I have a short representation on the Magellan text mining architecture. This will hopefully give you a little bit more detailed knowledge on the, change the name of this, I should have. I did plagiarize some of this. A little bit more detail on the underlying architecture of the whole Magellan text mining framework. Can't change it. Oh. Ignore the name of the version, but this is in general the overlying architecture. So in Magellan text mining, there's a lot of different components. We actually have crawlers, and for crawlers, we have the web and social media crawler, which is based on Apache Notch, and the Twitter crawler, the social media crawler, which is really only Twitter. So it's based on the Twitter APIs. We also have an admin UI, which we're going to talk about and stuff. And then we actually have the CM crawler in top of that. As part of the pipeline, this is where we actually have multiple feeders from within the different components. We're going to go into details. And then the feeders, the outcome of the pipeline is calling the Magellan text mining engine and then persisting that data in the database. So there's a lot of different pieces in play here. We're going to go into a lot more details into each of these components. So the first one we're going to talk about is the Magellan crawler for web and social media. So think of it this way. So there's a lot of different components. We have a dashboard for the web crawler, and that kind of shows the different pieces for it. So there's a dashboard API there. Internally, we use MongoDB to kind of store the status of the different websites that we crawled and when we crawled them. There's also Kafka involved to actually do the orchestration of this. We use Zookeeper as well. So there's a lot of different internal architectures. The ingestion pipeline uses, again, Kafka to consume the different pieces of it. We have different scrapers, HTML cleaners, and then the ingestion pipeline calls the text mining engine. So think of it this way: when we crawl a website, it feeds into the ingestion pipeline. The ingestion pipeline will then call the text mining engine, and then the text mining engine will return to the ingestion pipeline whatever it is, the results of the semantic metadata, and then it will actually, depending on how you set this up, it could put it into a Spark adapter, so it depends if you're using MapR or HTTP or other types of things, or it could put it in Postgres, or it could put it in their Solr database. So all the different pieces are involved in this, so it's a fairly sophisticated process, but internally, from a very high level, all we need to understand is the web crawler and social media. Its job is to crawl either the websites or the Twitter. It feeds that whatever it extracts from that into the ingestion pipeline, which in turn calls the text mining engine, which in turn will update one of the or more of the persistent data stores. Questions? All right. So here's a much smaller, right? So there's a crawler admin UI, the web crawler itself. We use MongoDB and Kafka for the orchestration and to check which webs we're crawling. It goes into a feeder, extracts it does a text extraction. We'll call the text mining engine. It uses some web scraping rules and then puts that information into a database. This is a more simpler version of this, so it just kind of gives you a different idea of different things you need to know. This is just the interface, so this is for an older version. We'll see what it looks like now, so it's slightly different. So it's powered by Apache Nutch and the MongoDB, and then you can actually use things like URL scope to filter explicitly which URLs you want to crawl and which you don't want to crawl, the maximum crawl depth, which is, so on a web page, I could follow the links, so the number of levels you want to crawl, and then the breadth would be the number of links to consider for each level of crawling job. So so if a web page has 1,000 links on it, how many of those do I want to crawl, right? So the depth will be how many links to go. So I could go from one page to the next page to the next page, how deep I want to go, and then how wide do I want to go on a single page. And then we actually have web scraping rules that can extract the specific pieces of content from a website. So the web scraping rules will get things like the authors of the web page, the dates on the web page, and so we could actually add that as semantic metadata, so things like that. So that's the kind of capabilities that we have in there. In the database, in the relational database, this is the schema that we actually put the data in, right? So the things that we store is the crawler ID, the actual source URL, when it was created, the content tile, and things like that, and then the language and the source, and then just a unique identifier for a document. The document could be the web page, and then some extensions. So that's what we store for the social media. For Twitter crawler, it's very similar. So I'm not going to go into a lot of more details in this. There's no MongoDB in this. We only need to use Kafka in this case. But most of that is stored that way. Again, it's a similar version of that. For the Twitter crawler, basically we follow the Twitter APIs, right? So Twitter actually has two APIs, Twitter Search and Twitter Stream. So Twitter Search will actually crawl backwards in time. Twitter Stream will call data that's going forward. So depending on what it is that you want to do, we'll define which of those options you want to choose. For the search criteria, the things that we look for is which words are you looking for, or which people, so which @ signs are these things, the date ranges, coordinates, so you could actually say, I only want to search in these coordinates. These basically very simply map to the Twitter APIs. On the stream, basically follow these people, which phrases to track, and again, the location kind of thing. So it actually adds a different kind of thing. In the Twitter, we actually store more information. So on the tweets itself, well, there's a lot of different information we store about the tweets. These are all the different things that come back from the API. And then we also store which hashtags were used for each tweet, which URLs were used in each tweet, who was mentioned in each of these tweets. So all that information is stored in the media. Magellan for crawler for ECM, this is a little bit more complex. So in the case of that, we actually have the crawler itself, and we have something called integration services. So the integration services, think of this as a very sophisticated ETL tool that will move the data from whatever repository you want into the crawler. You know, the different things about the pipeline and that's all part of it. That's very simply similar. And then which ECM repositories we support is different. So again, in more simple terms, the ECM crawler uses the integration center, and then it sends that information to the pipeline. We actually have a conversion service here. So if it's a PDF, for instance, we want to convert that to text. For the purpose of our conversion service, for the most part, we use Apache. I'll remember the name in a second. But we actually use an Apache tool to convert the different documents, whether to text, because it's important to note that the engine itself, all the text engine knows is text. It doesn't know documents. So we actually have to convert whatever document you're actually sending to it into text. With HTML on Twitter, that's not a problem because it is text. With the repositories, it could be a PDF, it could be a Word document, it could be Excel. So we'll actually convert that to text and then put that to wherever we're storing that information. We're going to go in more detail. So for ECM crawlers, we have repositories. So it could be a content server, it could be a file share, it could be generic. So we do have connectors for all the open text products out of the box, and we also have connectors. Next, let me just show you what are the connectors we have. Where am I? I should put that there. Okay, so these are the different connectors that we support. So everything, let me just actually put it on the page. Right, so all these are the different open text ones, so all the different ones that we actually have and the ones we're supporting. So right now we're on 16.7, so and the different ones that we have, and so we also support some IBM stuff, some cloud stuff like Box, Dropbox, Google, Gmail, Drive. And then the different Microsoft options. So we have connectors to Exchange, SharePoint, and then we have a generic one. And where there's a check marks, these are ones that are actually included out of the box with Magellan. The rest of them, like the IBM, the cloud, and the Microsoft, these are extra SKUs that you can actually get. And let me just go back and so that. I'm going to put that in the share too, so you actually have that. So for the ECM crawlers, we actually, based on the document, we store other stuff. We actually have the document metadata, like who owned it, the file type, authors, number of websites, but we also have metadata attributes that we can actually add to that, the number of words, number of characters. So there's different types of attributes that we also store in the database. And then we actually, okay. So any questions until now before I go into the pipeline a little bit more? So again, the pipeline actually persists the crawling. Basically, its job is the orchestrator, right? It takes information from the crawlers, calls the text mining engine, and then persists the data. As far as persisting the data, we actually have different choices. So it basically transformed the crawl data for indexing to persist them in the database. So there's a document queuing by Apache Kafka, and we have different database adapters. And the database adapters that we actually have are for a relational database, Spark, and then Solr. So it's a long different thing. So basically there's a feeder, that's what comes in. We have the conversion service that is used. This is where we apply the crawler scraping rules. We do text extraction, field mappers, file type normalizers. We do detectors. We do language detections. We summarizer. We do the analyzer, which is what we call the text mining engine. And then we persist that whether it's into a Solr database or database adapter. And the database adapters, we have relational databases and Spark. So that's kind of like, so it's kind of, this reason why it's called a pipeline, because it has a pipeline of things that it actually does. It doesn't do them all in all of those cases, right? So here's another way of looking at that. Call command to get text extracted from content files, using the input MIME types to normalize the values, removing tags from incoming documents. So there's a lot of different things that it talks about. The persistent adapter support for SQL Server, Postgres, and MySQL. Out of the box, we ship PostgreSQL because it's free. And then we could actually use that as a persistent data store to further store the database. Any questions? The one thing that it didn't talk about. So one of the things I just wanted to mention, so these are what we store for the different specific databases. We also have in the pipeline database additional tables to store the things like the concepts, the entities, and the categories that we extract using the text mining engine. And we're going to go in that when we look at some of the more detailed information. Any questions about the big architecture of the text mining engine?
No, thank you.
All right. All right.
Luca and Rocco, for your information, as I said Monday, the installation that is shared with you, you have access on, is going to store the text mined information into Postgres. Okay. So yes, as I explained a couple of days ago, in the configuration that you have, by default, the framework is going to be connected with the Postgres instance.
Okay, great.
So I'm actually using my own POC environment. You actually should have. Let me pause sharing for a second.
Luca, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. No, I didn't know if probably Mike had some issue.
No, I'm just, I paused.
Okay. Luca, you can share in the meantime, you can share the user I created for you for text mining annotation studio. Reply user, which is a simple user but should be able to create, manage and modify all the text mining annotation features like authority file. I see that in the agenda there is something like that. So I think you can forward the reply user with the password to your colleague. Okay?
Okay, but
Right, so I'm actually using your environment here now. This is environment.
can we use
So the first thing I'm going to go into here is the, go ahead, questions?
we can we use the same user in the same time, more people?
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the text annotation studio. This one's not enabled with OTGS, so that's why I have to enter in user ID again. I get it right. Did I not? No, that's not the user. Who's on here? Guillaume on here? You know what the, well, I'm not sure which one, what the user is for Annotation Studio.
Yes, it's demo user with capital U and @1 should be the password. The user it's all lowercase, yes, in this way, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I did. And either I just didn't type it in, right? All right, so this is the Annotation Studio. This is an interface where we use to manage knowledge bases and authority files. So knowledge base is used for the purpose of categorization. Authority files are used for the purpose of entity extraction. So these are all out-of-the-box authority files that we actually have. So I'm looking at Authority File Manager. Yeah, this little scroll guy is sometimes hard to get. Come on. There you go. Once you start scrolling it, there you go. There's my scroll, right? So this is what we actually have out of the box. So for instance, for diseases, these are all the different diseases that we actually have there. This is based on industry standards, so there's 25,000 diseases there. Drugs, the different drugs that they have, again, these are things that are coming from the database. And then some of them are hierarchical. So if I go into GL, right, it's hierarchical. So here are all the continents. Oh, I wonder what's in standalone. Yeah. Don't know what that is. But if I go into, let's go into Europe, see where Italy is. Are you in Southern Europe? Nope. Yes, you are. So Italy. Where's Reply's offices?
Lombardy, Lombardia, yes, Milan. It is Lombardy in English.
And then even in the metropolitan city of Milan, there's different, I guess these are county, like areas within neighborhoods within Milan.
Milan.
So as you can see, there's a lot of different locations. So this is actually something that we actually pick up that's hierarchical in nature. So these are all the ones that are out of the box. GN, so GL is countries, states, and that. GN is geographical things, so we'll have things like lakes, mountains, and stuff like that. That's actually the largest of the authority files. ON will be organization names. PN are people, so we'll actually have a list of all the a lot of different people. We'll have some popular first names, last names, and stuff like that. So it kind of does like this. So if you notice, this is fairly large. It's 37 million people in there. So we actually have a bunch of different pieces. Trademark, and then UK is just something specific that we built for UK English. So it kind of gives you a little bit on that. And then for Authority File Manager, I can do things like create a new authority file. I could create new terms. So and go back to, on the terms. So if I go to, let's see, go back to GL, right? So if I go to terms, there's might be multiple variations of Africa. I can actually create relationships. So this is where the hierarchy is defined. So, and then different attributes. So it actually has different attributes, different things. So it's got a name of how it's spelled in things, and then this is Portuguese. So it actually has the different languages for that, right? So that kind of gives you an idea of what you can do. So I could actually create a new authority file. I could create a new term. I could do a search, and then I could import, export a validated authority file. With the knowledge base manager, and this is the different knowledge bases that we have. And then, so there's business finance. ETDA, this is an energy sector one. So here's all the different type of things. So engineering, energy storage, you can see it's all engineering, all energy based. GAP is an accounting based one. So it'll actually say what the different categories are and things like that. ICB is more of an industry standard, so it's an industry-based one. IPTC is a more generic one. This is based on the information publishing, telecommunication console, stuff like that. So this is their standards and things like that. So there's all these different knowledge bases here.
Sorry.
And the same thing here. I could go ahead. Is there a question?
Yes, sorry. Which kind of files we can use for import an authority file?
So the types of, the easiest thing to do is to export one, and then you could see basically when you export one, so let's go to, you said authority files.
No, I mean just for import, to create a new authority file is if I have something, I don't know, CSV or something like that.
Basically, it's a CSV or an XML file. So the CSV will actually have the name of the authority file. So depending on what it is. So if I export it, you could actually see what we're exporting. And then you'll see it's the same format. So download authority files. So, and what it creates is an XML document. So basically, there's an authority file when it was modified, when indexed. So there's an index of the attributes, the name of the attributes, right? And then each attribute will actually have a different thing. So if there's just, and so you could either do it as an XML file or you could do it as a comma delimited file. And the same thing goes, I think it's documented what these formats need to be in order to import them.
Yes, it's documented a little bit. I think Marta was making the question, right?
Yes.
Marta, for what I've so the documentation in the previous version was not so, let me say, complete. If, as you have seen from this test, if you export the taxonomy or the authority file in XML, you see that you can manage almost everything, so relation, hierarchy, something like that. If you want just to import a simple list with variations, so maybe, I don't know, one drugs in different names, in different way of calling the same drugs, I just tested, and the Excel file can be supported, a CSV or Excel file can be supported, and each cell it's represent the different, in a single line represent the different value of the same item in the authority file. This is documented. You have to follow a rule, which is first cell should be AF, so there is so both format, for sure XML it's the most complete one, because with the XML you can create a relation and so on, okay, or sorry, the hierarchy and so on.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So with the authority fair, this is what we're going to do. One of the exercises is we're going to actually train the knowledge base. So one of the things that we actually can do is to create a new knowledge base based on tagged document, right? So, for instance, I want to train the engine to classify documents based on mine. So these are basically our out-of-the-box classifications, right? But in many cases, our customers have their own classifications. So we're actually going to go through a lab. We're going to train a knowledge base and do it that way, and actually get some quality, get some training capability there. So show you what the process is in order to train your own knowledge base. Any questions about the Annotation Studio or knowledge bases or authority files? So this was just a kind of like, simple walkthrough of what we actually have, right? So, questions? None? Perfect. So what I'm going to do now is we're actually going to go into each of these labs. So we're actually going to go into these labs. So you should have downloaded these files. And then you can actually, I'm going to do it on my environment, so I'm not touching your environment, but I'm going to walk through these labs as well. You could follow along with me. You could ask me to slow down. You could do these labs on your own because you actually have all the files, but this is kind of going through this. So let me go to make sure I have the right environment. Yep, so I have my own environment here. All right. All right, so we're going to create a new taxonomy. the first thing we're doing is we're going to, create the train data. Okay. So we actually have a file called train.zip, right? So in the train.zip, right, we're just going to open up the file. There's a bunch of files, each of these. So these are actually, we're using a data set, a public data set that we found that is basically, it actually has just people reviewing specific wines. So for many years was exclusively produced at Columbia Wineries. It has some extraction. So each of these are just text about those wines. The thing about the training set, it's important that each one actually has a text ID that's unique, right? So we actually have this train data set. And that's what we're going to use to train. The other thing that it actually has is the category. So they all actually have a category that we're going actually to use that. So basically, here's a text, here's a unique identifier. These are the three things that you need for a training data set. Text ID, a category, and actually where the document is. So those are things. So we're actually going to go into Management Console, and we're going to prepare a corpus. So we're going to go into Knowledge Base Manager and go into Tools, and we're going to prepare a corpus. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to choose that file. And we're going to upload that. So now we're actually going to set up some things. So the text ID is actually text ID. The category will be the document.category, right? And then the text is actually going to be the text. So we're actually telling the engine to where are those different fields. So these are when you're, like I said, when you're training an engine, you have to tell it where everything is. There could be multiple categories. There could be multiple areas where the text. So this is actually a multi-select if I wanted. So if there's more than one text there, I could do it that way, right? If I'm not mistaken, we do want to check extract taxonomy because this will basically extract the categories automatically. So we already have that. So we're going to extract the category. We're not going to reserve a data test set because we already, where's my call it for? I close it. Because we already have because we already set up a test set there. So we actually already set up a separate level of items to test this out, right? And that's what we're going to use for the crawling. Aha. Now we know it. Right? And then we're going to execute this. So it's analyzing the corpus, it's extracting the taxonomy. So basically what it's doing is it's creating these files. So basically 500 documents were analyzed, none were rejecting. It extracted 5 categories, and then there's in the training set, there's 500 documents. Look at this, so let's close this, right? So all that did was prepare the corpus for us. Did I forget to download the corpus file? Let me do that again, sorry. Okay, so that's what I forgot to do. So download all will actually download this file. So it created a corpus file for me. Show in folder. It created this corpus for me. We'll go to the next step now. Little details. Right? So we executed. We clicked on download all, moved the file, downloaded, and then let's copy this to the C drive, new folder. So it actually created a bunch of different files. So, right, so it actually created what documents it analyzed, what it rejected, the categories, frequency, the flat taxonomy, and stuff like that. So we're going to actually use all these different things. All right. So now the next step is we're going to actually train this. So we're actually going, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to import the knowledge base. So go to Tools, Import. We're going to choose a file, and the file that we're going to choose is the flat taxonomy, I think. It'll be a flat taxonomy. Let me just verify that. It's a flat taxonomy. And import. And what it created is this flat taxonomies, and here's those 5 categories. So it's the 5 different varieties of wine that it created, but they're all empty. So if I go into here, there's no information there. There's no relationships. There's no rules. There's no machine learning. There's nothing there because we haven't created it. Now, the first thing we want to do is we want to give it a meaningful name, right? So we're going to call this Wine Mag because this was based on the Wine Magazine articles, right? And then we're going to click on the information, and we're going to change this to English because that's the language it is in. Right? Click on the Save button, make sure I don't miss any steps. And now we're actually going to train the knowledge base, right? So now we're going to go into Tools and train the knowledge base. We're going to train the Wine Mag. It's going to be English. Make sure you're training to the language that you're actually doing. And when we're going to choose a file, which is the analyzed one, the corpus analyzed. Yep. And then we're going to upload. So now it's training. So basically, it's uploaded the file, it's updating the knowledge base, and basically, so behind the scenes, what's happening is the Magellan text mining engine is looking at each of these documents, extracting the concepts, and trying to verify and trying to associate different concepts with different categories. All right, so 500 used for training, 500 was successfully trained, 0 rejected. And now it's showing, am I supposed to download? and then you could close that. So that we just changed the knowledge base. So if I actually go to WineMag English, and I go to the categories, and I go into categories, and under machine learning, there's a lot of different rules that it actually said. Actually, so these are all the different concepts that it dredge out of that. And if I go into each one of them, there will be some information about it that it actually does that. So there's some machine learning concepts for each of these different languages that actually has a weight to it and things like that. So it actually created a bunch of different, so if I actually go into Cabernet Sauvignon, there's different things like alcohol. Within Chardonnay, you'll see that there's different categories associated with that. And then if I go to Riesling, then there's again different categories associated with that. And that's how you train a knowledge base. Now, the next step typically with these type of knowledge bases is that in addition to the machine learning, we actually create rules. And we're not going to do that in this case, but part of the power of Magellan Text Mining is that not only does it do machine learning to actually create categories, but we could also do knowledge engineering. So I, as a new rule, right? So I could actually create a new rule and basically and actually add some conditions here. So I could actually add a new rule. So if any of these concepts are found and stuff like that, I could actually apply rules. So if I, as a knowledgeable person, I know that these 5 words are in the thing, it's most likely Cabernet Sauvignon. Or if these are not there, then it's probably not. So there's a lot of different things that I could actually mention in there to actually apply to do that. Any questions about training a knowledge base?
No, thank you.
All right. The next part of this session is we're actually going to create a authority file, right? Right there. So here's an instance of how to import an authority file, right? So basically what we're doing is and actually has it. Did I lose you? Can you guys still hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right. So we actually have a CSV file. So we actually created a CSV file just so you could actually see it, right? So this is the authority file, and then the terms that we're actually going to do it, right? So what we're going to do here is go back to my browser, authority file manager, and then tools, import. Choose file to import. And then import. And so now we actually have a WineMag authority file, and in there's 5, 10 terms, right? So for apple aromas, for instance, if I go into here, you'll see that there's different variations of it. So it's apple aromas, apple cider aromas, for baked aromas, for enticing. So each of them actually might have multiple variations of that. And the reason to have variations on entities is because I want to find certain instances of entities within the same document. So I could be Micah Block, I could be Micah Jonathan Block, I could be Micah J Block. All those will be, if they're appeared multiple times in a document, there'll be three, even though it's different variations of my name, it still would be it'll be three instances. It'll be, when it actually counts how many times I am in that document, it'll all be the same person. So part of the text mining engine will actually give you how many times that entity appears in a document, and I could appear multiple times even though it's spelled differently. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah, clear.
All right. Next part of the lab, I think that's the end of this lab. Yep. So that was, do I want to close all? Sure. So what we did so far, so we did a tour of the knowledge base, we trained a knowledge base, we created an authority file and stuff, and things like that. Any questions? All right. The next part is going to be the fun part. The next part we're going to do is the REST API. So one of the things that I should have said previous to that is that we're going to, for this lab, we're going to use a piece of software called Postman, which is a tool that enables us to make REST API calls fairly easily. So can I suggest, I can put this in the chat. I'll just put that in the chat. So let's take so it's 12:35 my time. Can we take like a 10 or 15-minute break for everyone to bio breaks to download and install Postman? Is that reasonable?
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to keep my window, no, I'm not going to keep my window open. But so it's 12:34 my time. I'm going to start again at 12:50 my time.
Okay, so 15 minutes break, correct?
Yeah. And then I'm assuming that anybody wants to follow with the next lab will actually have Postman installed. And let's pause the recorder also.
Okay.
The recording. All right. Thank you for joining me again. We are going to continue with using the REST API. So in many applications, why is this important? That in many applications, the integration with Magellan Text Mining is only using the text mining engine alone, right? So in the architecture portion of the components, what we did was we talked about the whole big picture, right? So from the crawlers to the pipeline to the engine to the data to the persistent database, right? In many cases, certain applications, all they're really interested in is the text mining engine alone, right? Here's a piece of text, give me sentiment. Here's a piece of text, categorize it. Here's a piece of text and do something with it. So one of our development philosophies here at OpenText is, in most cases, we develop the APIs first and build our own user interfaces on top of that. So all of our own tools also use the same REST APIs in order to build our own user interfaces. So classic examples would be things like I have an application, a AppWorks application that does incoming customer communications classification. And so based on those incoming messages that are coming, whether it's email or through our social media, I need to respond in certain ways, but I don't know who needs to respond to until I classify it. So this is a sales question, so I'm going to send it to the salespeople. This is a support call, so I'll open up a case in support. So you can actually automate a lot of processes by just classifying the incoming communication, for example, right? So that's kind of what we're talking about here. So this is going to talk about a lot of different information that we're doing in that. So the first thing that we're going to do is you're going to start Postman, and then you're going to import this JSON file. So one of the things that you should actually have in the lab is this JSON file, right? And then with this JSON file, you'll get a bunch of different, where's my Postman, right? You'll get all these different type of calls here. So the different calls that you actually have here. Close this. You don't need to see this. And then there's something in here called environments. So on the right side here, you'll say which environments you're going to be using. So for my POC environment, it looks like this. So there's a bunch of different things: TME hostname, TME port, the username, the password, and then the host IP. For some reasons in this JSON file, sometimes it's using the host name, sometimes it's using host IP, but it should be the same. So what I'm going to do is go back here, cancel, and I'm going to duplicate my POC environment. I have now a POC environment, and I am going to edit that. So the first thing I'm going to call it is Baker Use, because that's the environment we're using. Right. And then the only thing you really need to change here is what it is that I'm talking about. There. If it's without the HTTP and without the flash. Oh. Did it change it? Yeah. Oh, it did change it. Persist all, you have to copy. So now initial value, so it actually changed everything. Okay. Does everybody have an environment set up? Is anybody there?
We
RE.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Okay, so now that we actually have this environment. All right. So now I'm actually going to change the environment to use my Baker Hughes environment, and now I'm going to go back to the Word document and do it now. Okay, so the first thing is we're going to execute our first command. So in the Postman, select a post query that's called TME sample call. So this is history, collections. This is the TME sample call, right? And then you notice here that it's just saying host name and port and stuff like that. So this is what we're posting, and we're going to send this. So it's sending the request to that Baker Hughes POC. And here's what I got back. So you can actually look at the difference. So this is the parameters. So if I actually look at the headers, no, parameters, should have looked at this first. So basically, the body basically says, I sent a B, so I should have actually let me just close it. This is the body of the request. Sorry, this is what's the important part. So this is the request. And basically what I'm sending it is, here's a piece of text that I'm sending it. And this is what I want to do with it. I want to extract the concepts. I want 10 simple concepts and 15 concepts. I want to do entity extraction for GN and GL. So there's two types of ways. I'm hoping that there's two types of ways to do entity extraction. One is called full text search, which is basically just find, if it's in the authority file, that's okay. If it's not, don't use any machine learning, right? Whereas NFExtract does machine learning. So it actually does it that way. And then it's saying on NFExtract, just do GL, ON, PN, and date. And then for categorizer, use these knowledge bases, IPTC, ICB, Business Finance, Library of Congress. So it does that, do a summarizer, and do sentiment, right? And the result back is it did a language detector, so it found that it was English, had a confidence score. So this is the one important things to note is when we detect something, we give it a confidence level. So this is basically 79%, which is, or almost 80%, which is fairly high. For full text search for GN, right? It found Cubano Bay, Texas, United States. And we're actually extracting the full hierarchy. So it's part of Texas and part of North America. So we're actually even extracting the hierarchy. So in the request, when we said GN, we said output parents equals true. And I want to also get the attribute. So there's a lot of information that you get out of there. And then there's another one called corporate. So it found that place also. And it found Gulf of Mexico. So it found all these different places, right? And then it's getting a hierarchy. So this is actually long. And then one of the attributes is for San Antonio, one of the attributes is its location. So these are all the geocodes for San Antonio, right? So there's a lot of different things that extracts on the attributes. So I'm not going to go into this too much. So for date, for instance, it found extracted term was Friday, right? So Friday is not a date, but when we say extract dates, since 2012 is also a date, right? So there's a lot of different things. So and then the GL is found Houston, Texas. So again, there's hierarchy based on that. And then additional terms. So these are different terms that it found. What are these? These are attributes. Hormone. So it actually found different, all these different things. So there's a lot of information that we actually return when it's coming to that. So this is still we're still on entities. There's a lot of information, as you can see, when so categories. So now we're finally down to categories, right? So one of the categories that it found was meteorological disasters, windstorms. So it found for IPTC, it found these three categories. What was the weight for it, right? And then for ICB, it found healthcare with the weight. And then again, different documents. So there's a lot of different things that it actually found. And then for sentiment, right, we actually have it at the sentence level. So we actually do sentiment on the sentence level, the entity level, and then on the document. So here's all this different sentiments on the different sentences. And then on the document level, right? So the document level, it's opinion, so there's a subjectivity, a positive score of 8% and a negative score of 27. So this is more positive. And then here's all the concepts that it actually found. And then here's a summarizer. So that's kind of, so the important part to understand, from my perspective, to understand here is based on what you ask is what you get, right? So I asked for a lot of stuff, right? And I got some stuff, right? So that's kind of where we're going with this. So the less, depending on what you want to get, then you get a result. And the result is, in this case, it's based on XML. Any questions on this? Because this is kind of one of the, I'd say, key points to the REST API is you send it a text, you tell it what you want to get out of the text, and the results are exactly what you expect it to be. Right. Read the XML. All right, so let's do the light version then. And here on the light version, right, I'm asking for a lot less. I didn't ask for hormones. I didn't ask for the different, all the different things. So if I execute this one, right, the XML is much smaller, right? I'm not getting all the information that I asked for. I don't get the parents. I don't get the attributes. I just get what I asked for. And then let's try changing this. For NF, we're going to have some fun a little bit. One of the cartridges we created was WineMag. And one of the categories we created was also WineMag. So we're actually sending it the wine mag and see what happens when I send this. Huh. No, I'm curious. Oh, because I did it on mine because I didn't want to do it on yours. Let's do this.
You should check the knowledge base because you are, I think you are using the wine learning.
I created it on mine, but not yours.
Hmm.
All right, so IPTC didn't find any categories. And then for this year.
Yes, I don't see it. It's not in Becker Hughes. Yes, I'm checking now.
And so it actually found Cabernet Sauvignon, so it actually did that. And then there were no terms in the other category, so it actually did it that way. All right. Let's go back to the exercises. The next what we're going to do is how to call the authority files and Taxonomy Manager API using a REST client. Start Postman, we did that. We don't need to do that. So one of the things here we have is get a list of authority files. And so in this case, if you notice, the post I'm doing is different. The body, there is no body. It's just saying, here's a REST call. Just give me the authority file. And why is it? Oh, because I'm looking at the body. Oh, got an error. I know why, because I haven't. This we might have to do from the. Let me see. this is what gets actually returned back from get a list of authority files. The reason why, okay, to make it a lot, I'm going to try to make long story short. So the way the VM that we have set up with you, it's an Azure VM, and underneath it is a bunch of different nested VMs. So here's all the different nested VMs that we actually have. So it's a fairly substantial environment. We only expose certain things to the outside world. We expose the REST API, but not the REST Service Manager API. So the RS worked from my local Postman to this server machine, but the other ones didn't. Let's see what else we can do here. So we can actually go through. What else we have?
Maiga, I installed Postman on my laptop, and I imported your configuration file pointed to Becker Hughes environment, and with the get list of authority files, I get the list from Becker Hughes.
You do get the list.
Yeah. I have diseases, suffix, drugs, in the rest answer inside Postman.
So
probably, yeah.
Maybe I'll change the configuration again. So you're saying.
And even for the knowledge base, I get the list. So the GAP, General Business, ICB, IPTC. Yes, Becker Hughes. Here it is. With let me check the user for connecting yes, I am administrator, yes.
Bad credentials.
Yeah, probably you should use the credential, you should update the credential. Okay, this is correct, I think. The TME port is wrong. Usually it's not 80. In my environment, it should be 80. No, in it is. Let me check the configuration.
We're doing a redirect.
Okay. Because yes, but I didn't do a redirect, and I put 40,002, and it works. From my laptop.
Are you running Postman from within the environment?
No, I'm running Postman from my laptop. Try this, yes, please.
That's great.
TME Becker Hughes. Did you update the TME Becker Hughes? Try to check. Okay. Let me check with the same user, demo user, user 1. I will check it. I want just to change the password. Let me check. Update. Yeah, bad credentials. So in my case, I just fake the password, and I get bad credential. Demo user. Let me check this user. Demo user @1.
Pass you the ball for a second.
Yeah. Yeah, I get it.
Can you share?
My screen? One moment.
Mm-hmm.
Where is the sharing with this one? Here it it is. It should be share content. Here it is. My screen. Okay. This is. You see my screen?
Yep.
Yes.
This is the get list of taxonomy, but the same for authority file. If I send, I get the list. You
Yep.
see, tac.
You see your yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is.
I can. Maybe your variable name and password you can try.
Yes,
Okay. Let's do the rest of it from yours then. So
You have to check this.
yeah.
Authorization here.
So there's less taxonomy.
In your environment, you have the password with one not
Okay.
No, go back.
Sorry. Here it is. Here I have just this
get
and
name
this.
entity type information.
Sorry?
Yeah, close the manage environment.
Okay.
And if you notice under authority file taxonomy, there's also get name entity type information on the left.
On the Which one? This one? This is working as well, and I get entity type, taxonomy, this, you mean? Let me check. Yeah.
So basically what this is doing, if you notice on the different knowledge bases, just so you see what it's doing, it's saying on a specific knowledge base, on a specific on specific language, on specific categories, on which categories, and it's giving you the information about that category.
Yeah, because here in the URL there is the pointing to the IPTC, for example.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the same thing with if you do on get named entity type.
Here it is. Yeah.
It's doing the same thing. Right?
Yeah. You see the information. French, ISO, linked, blah blah blah. All the administration type information. Definition type information.
So in reality, right? Sorry, Roberto, but you need to go back on mute. I don't know why your phone echoes.
Yeah.
All right. So the idea is that the REST APIs, right? So there's REST calls to get the text mining engine, and then there's REST calls. So let me take the ball back. Right? So there's REST calls to basically call the text mining engine. This is the one that's probably the one you're going to use the most. And those are the different ones that you want. And then there's different get calls to get different information, different taxonomies. These are more on the management side. And I think that was the end of the REST version. So you could search in a taxonomy or an AF. Is that there? I don't think. So searching in an AF basically, and this is the part of that is, so in GL terms, query where it's Tampa, but it's not Florida. Right, so this will actually find all the Tampas that are not in Florida, right? So you could actually even do searching within within the authority files. Any questions about, and so we talked about managing the time. This is what we did before. We don't need to. So you, if you want to follow, if you want to do this part, this is just different things because we actually created a taxonomy on our own. And so there's different ways to do that, adding categories to your taxonomy. So there's a different point to that, organizing the hierarchy of your taxonomy. So this is how you create different levels within your taxonomy. So this is if you want to create your own knowledge base, right? How to create rules to categorize different content, right? This is how you create rules. And you could follow along with this lab. We don't, you know what? Well, if we have time towards the end, we're going to come back to this. If we, this is a good thing to do. We did the training part, so I'm not worried about that. Let me see what else I have here. Importing a taxonomy. We did that. Train a knowledge base. We did that. Okay, we'll come back to this if we actually have time. So the next thing, we could do this. Let's follow these instructions. So we don't need this anymore. We don't need this. All right. So let's go back to the text mining because there's sorry, I'm going back to it. So which one is this Baker H? Let me go back to mine. So I'm actually not using yours. And you guys can actually follow along on your side, and then we'll. All right. So this is going to be interesting because it actually shows how one would create rules and stuff like that. So we're going to, basically what we're going to create is this taxonomy, right? So there's different types of contracts. There's fixed price ground, cost reimbursable charges, and time materials contracts, right? So we're going to create a new knowledge base called procuring contracts. So knowledge base manager, file, new knowledge base, call it procuring clients, and make this English. Right, and has been added, all right? So now we have this new procurement English contract, right? And there's no categories and stuff like that. Now, So basically, we're going to be creating these, right? So we're going to create, I'm not going to create them all because, so we're going to do categories, file, new category. Right? And then I don't think we need to create all of these, but we'll just do the highlight. All right. So now we need to create the hierarchy, right? So we're going to we'll go back here. So and select the second left one. The file new. Oop, that's not what I wanted. And then what's the relationship? And click add and save. Now, under cost relationship, there's that purchase order. So that's how you create the relationships in the different categories. I don't think we need to go through creating all the different ones, but that's kind of the idea. You get an understanding of how to create the taxonomy. So this all this does is it creates the taxonomy. It doesn't train anything. We still would have to train it like we did before in the beginning, but it gives you an idea of the different types of concepts that actually do that. Now we're going to create a rule, right? Okay, so we're going to create some concepts. And now we have 3 concepts here, right? And now we're going to add a role. And we're going to give it a name. Sorry. That's not what I want. Sorry. Steps. Hey, what happened to my role? Okay, here we go. Now we're done. Okay, so what we're going to do is, I'm going to click on conditions. Oops, if I actually have, it's a slightly different interface. That's why. Sorry. As you can see, I haven't done this in a long time. So I apologize for this. I'll figure it out and I'll record it and I'll send it out. I don't want to waste more time on that, but this is the UI to actually create new conditions. I just haven't played this in a long time. So I am going to get back to you on that and how to do that correctly. The UI has changed a little bit since we actually built this. So I apologize for that because that was, and I think that's where we wanted to do. We created a taxonomy and trained a database. We already did that. And we imported a taxonomy. Okay, so we're going to stop here on this one. And I will find out how to do this correctly and I'll record it and I'll send it out. The next section of our training is setting up a crawling job. Let's do this because this is important, one of the important parts to that. All right. There you go. Here's my test set. Okay. So what we're going to do is I'm going to do this on my VM because I don't want to change your VM and you might want to actually do that. So on your VMs, you should actually have a folder here called files for crawling. And this will actually point, the idea is this is a network share with the ECM crawler itself, right? So I'm actually going to create a new folder here and call it WineMag. And now I'm going to go and copy this test set.
Mike, I have a question.
Yes.
For the Baker Hughes environment, we created a folder for the POC for files for below file for crawling. But as you know, Reply doesn't have access in RDP mode to this server. I think someone of you was thinking about some let me say FTP polling or something, some way to upload or to submit files for the pipeline. How can they do without going directly as you are doing in remote desktop?
So the simple answer is it's not simple. I am working on something that will work within our environment. So it should work for Baker Hughes. However, I don't know that we could expose it to the outside world. I mean, it might be OpenText employees. So the idea in general, what we're doing is we're using, and this is, right. So we're actually using Azure Storage Explorers and file shares. So if I look under my storage accounts, I have a directory here where I could use crawler. So here's a test crawler. So this is in my test environment in my test folder.
Okay, so you are going to...
something we're trying to figure out how we could expose to at least to OpenText employees. Whether this will actually work for Reply, I do not know. So going back to my files for crawling here, right? So basically all I did is I copied those files here. So this is now empty, so I could actually delete this folder too. So under WineMag, I have all my different things, right? So let's go in here. All right, so this is the OpenText Magellan Text Mining Studio. This is where I have all my different jobs and all my different stuff. So we're going to actually do this together, or I'm going to do it and I can show you and you can record it. You could do the same things that I'm doing on my environment in your environment. So Roberto, if you can upload that test file similar to what I did to the Baker Hughes environment, can you do that? If not, I will do it. And that way they can follow along. Let me actually pause this. Oh, Roberto, you're trying to do it?
Yes, I was trying, but please proceed. I've seen that someone disconnect me, so you can go.
Micah, I think you can go on.
Micah, are you connecting to Magellan for reply?
Yeah, I am.
Yeah, I am.
Okay. No, because we don't see anything in the screen.
Yeah, because I am putting in passwords, so I'll unpause it.
Sure. Just to know.
So basically, in the Baker Hughes environment, there'll be exact same folder structure, WineMag. So you have that now. Okay, closing. That's it. I should still have the POC. Okay, we're good. All right, go back here. So now I'm going to go click on the settings here, right? And what we're doing is we're creating a new repository. I'm actually, yeah, I am in the right one. And I'm going to click on the little plus button here to add a new repository AD. Typically, when it comes to the repository number, I just do them sequential. I start with about 10,000. The simple reason is that because it has different meanings. So this is going to be 10,004. This is going to be a file share, and the description here would be WineMag repository. Right? And then on the repository, we actually have to define certain things, like how are we connecting to that file share as which user. In this case, the user is going to be an administrator connection because that's the name of the user, administrator. And the username is administrator. The password you'll be able to see is actually8, and you have to save that. So now we actually have the connection. And now the partitions, which is what's the share that we're actually going to be using in order to do that. You know what, I'm going to save this because I keep on forgetting the names of the shares. So let me go back to this guy. And the name of the share is ECM crawler. Okay, I don't have to remember it. So if I go to partitions, I want to add a partition, and this is going to be WineMag partition. And the reason why you might actually have multiple partitions within the same repository that you want to map to, the partition folder is going to be this /WineMag, right? So basically, it's a file share that I actually have connected to. Click save. Click save here. So now I created a new partition, right? And then on this one, the next thing I want to do is test the CM connection. So this is verifying that. Uh, Maybe I put in the wrong password. No, I didn't. Okay. Maybe just entered something wrong. Just test it again. Make sure I read the Hold on. I'm pausing this. So I'm just trying to figure out why it's not working. Ah, sorry, we'll get there. So we know this works. Okay. Go back. That's what we called it, right? Wine bag. Save. So just spelled something. No, there's only one. Okay. Save this and test this. I think I forgot the E, maybe, and I missed it. All right. So now that we actually did that, we actually have access to, we created a repository. All right, so now that we're done that, we're going to go home and we're going to create a new job. The job name would be Wine Mag Crawl. The project would be this project, type ECM. Right? And then the ECM crawler setting, we're going to actually use 2004, the WineMag partition, the administrator connection, running concept, initial population, number of threads 1. Save. So the job save, and now I basically created a job for this. So now I'm going to do that. I am going to start the job. The job is now running. Okay. Go back home. And it read 37 ECM documents, which I think is probably the number of documents in here. 50 documents is still running. 50 documents. So it crawled 50 documents. So now what we're going to do we're going to verify that it's in the database. And there's our database. So let's just query tool, and I'm just going to do a select star from what count star from. This is to verify that actually. Ooh, 112. Oh, that's because there's other stuff. Where repods. And that should be 50. 0. That's not good. Maybe not running. Okay. That would be a good reason. Sorry about this. Right, I'm going to pause this for a second. Oh, Sorry about this. The pipeline is running. Let's see if I could do it. On your machine instead. Let's actually go back. What's in the Baker Hughes folder? Right. You don't actually have the wine mag on here. We never put it there, so that won't work. It's in that test folder. Sorry, I'm trying. Now we'll just do the wine mag. Just do the regular crawl. All right. Sorry. See if this works. Okay, we're back here. same thing is not running, but it is running. All right, can we take let's make a 15-minute break and I'll see if I can figure this out. If not, we'll move on to something else. I apologize.
Yes,
So I'm going to stop.
Mike, I think when we are back, I think because the crawling part can be done once. No, once we have set it up, it's fine. At least for the beginning. I think you should go to the next step. To the text mining framework, which is much more interesting to reply in order to present the result of text mining to Becker Hughes. Okay?
Now it says it's running. Hold on.
I agree, Roberto.
Yeah. It just took time.
Okay. Mike, are you still there?
Yeah, I am.
Okay, so we can take a break and come back with the most interesting part, which is extracting from Postgres the result for IAB. Okay, and then we get it. Okay.
All right.
Okay, how much do you need? 15.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
Give me
How much?
actually 20 minutes because I'm going to grab a quick bite also.
Okay. It's fine for you, Luca?
Yes.
Yes.
So So this is the Postgres database where we persist a database. That's just so I thought I'd show you this first. There is category information, concept information, document sentiments, sentence sentiments. Terms are the entities, the summary, some attributes. So you could actually get the entity attributes out of there, the document, the tweets, the webs, all that's basically in there. And without, comprehensive knowledge of the data, sometimes it's difficult to get the data out of there. So what we did is we created a BERT project here. So actually, I'm not going to use this one. I'm going to use my local machine for this. So we have this text analytics project, and I'm going to make a copy for this so that I'm not writing the original page. You're going to get more details training on this tomorrow with Shirag, or Friday, whenever the next part of the training is. And in it, we actually have out of the box with this framework, we have a dashboard, we have a data object, which is a persistent store of the data, some images, some report designs, and some libraries and stuff like that. In the core share that I gave you, there is that the text mining framework. This is the zip file you can import into BERT. And then there's a document that talks about this text analytics BI framework. There's documentation on this framework. So all that should be in that folder for you. And so the first thing we need to do is we need to connect to your database. So I'm actually going to connect to, let's see, so so this is yours, except not POC Mag 163. It's 11. Might not have done it here. Okay. It's just
I think this is, if this is Becker Hughes environment, I think the text mining project has been already configured by Guillaume a couple of days ago with me. So if you open the connection, probably. Double check on the data source.
Sorry, I double clicked on the wrong thing. But no, we'll figure it. Make sure I'm doing the right one. Okay, and what I'm going to, so the other thing that so one of the parameters for these data objects, that's one of the important things is, and this is basically parameters on what data do I want to retrieve from the persistent data store. So the repository ID is the important one, right? So that kind of goes back to this guy. Are you in Restore the Studio? Yeah. Go back to the repositories. So the one we just created was that 1004. So I'm going to change the repository. Oh, whatever. That's the wrong one. Sure, I'm looking at this. Make sure I'm at the right one. Repositories. My magazine 10012. Let's make sure we're going the right one. So, oh, somebody already did it. And then there's the Twitter group, so we're not doing any Twitter crawlers, so you could actually combine data from your repositories and the web and Twitter. And then there's some minimums on the category weights and the concept relevancy, entity common, entity relevance, to make sure you're not picking up garbage. So let's just generate this data object. And now we're just going to view this dashboard out of the box. So this is, I didn't make any other changes. And so there's 48 documents there. And it actually gives me the body of the document and stuff like that. I could here filter it on the positive ones only and the negative ones, neutral ones only, or the negative ones only. Or I could clear it. I could go on different categories or different concepts. I could go into the detail of this. I don't know what all those garbage ones are in there. Well, I'll have to run it on the iHub to actually get to the details. And then we have entity analysis, and then the entity analysis, I could actually filter it on different KBs, different knowledge bases. There's not a lot there. And then I could do concept analysis. So it kind of gives me a little bit ideas on different things. Like here's a bunch of different wines, buttered alcoholic beverages, the different categories that it found, eating and drinking. I could do sentiment analysis. This chart contains no data because there's no date. The reason being is because it's a file share. There's no dates on the documents per se. Then, you know, obviously positive sentence have with, good, and this. So there's a lot of different things. And then some metadata stats is gives us the number of documents. Dates are, again, the dates are null at this case, but this can be changed. The important part of this out of the box stuff, it actually has a bunch of different out of the box queries that help you understand what the database is. In this case, for the list of the documents, since we want to get from the document table, we want to get the document name and the repository ID, but we also want to get the creation date. So the creation date is coming from, in this case, coming from the content metadata attributes, but that doesn't pick up the file share. That would actually work on the creation date that would come back from, let's say, a content server or something like that, and that's why the dates are wrong. The names, the tone, the positive score. So we're getting certain things that are actually on the language. And the reason why we actually have to do the union is because where we're getting the data is slightly different based on that. So in Twitter, there's a Twitter created at is the doc date, and web is created at. So that's the kind of different things that we get from the different, depending on the tables, the column names might be different. That's why we have to create a union. And then we create a data model, which is kind of a data design of the whole thing. So at the center, if it is a document, from the document, we go to the web, we go to sentiments, we could go to summary, we could go to Twitter. And then the different from there, we also go to concepts and categories and entities. We've also put in other things like give us concept counts. So for instance, if I want to filter the concepts with only have a large concept counts and the category counts. So there's different things that we could do on there to make life simpler. So inherently what we did is to create a framework that enables you with, as you saw, gives me some information out of the box without a lot of different pieces of information. Does this help? Questions about this framework? You're going to get a lot more information on the next training session and more details on the different components, but hopefully this would give you an idea of what this can do out of the box.
Yes, because one of the idea is to consider iHub for the POC as a development framework for the UI, at least for the analysis of the result. You remember when we discussed with Robert Capitan the idea of extracting the sentences for the welding, and then the sentences sent back to the text mining for the knowledge to be analyzed versus the knowledge base to see if it's an issue or not an issue. You remember? So one of the idea of Robert was to use this as an interactive interface to call, let me say, iteratively in iteration mode the text mining engine. So it's important to use this. Okay.
Yep. Exactly. Okay. So the last topic we were going to cover today is the customize the pipeline config. So how do I explain this in the simplest form? Let me actually go back in here. Open up a new tab. Okay. So basically, if you remember, the crawlers call the pipeline, which calls the OTCA, the engine, the text mining engine, and then retrieves it back. And what we have, and then if you recall from the REST thing, is when we're making that call, there is certain settings on how you want it to happen. and that, sorry, excuse me. And so the pipeline, when the crawler, when it calls the pipeline, it has to tell them, okay, here's the pipeline needs to understand how it's going to call the text mining engine with what settings. So there's a different, everything is done through Swagger. So for instance, this is, just gets a list of all the available OTCA profiles. So if I actually click on that and execute, so there's one called profile OTIF _ undisclosed, and then there's OTIF _web.fr. So there's a lot of different profiles that we actually set out of the box. So this is different profiles that you can actually use out of the box. And then there's how do I create it? There's a way to create new profile, validate a profile, and then retrieve. The default one that the default one that the default one that the profile uses is something called OTIF _en. Actually, it's the same profile that this is the default one. So if I execute it, I get the response, which is here's the profile that I get. So it's
So Mike, I have a question. So if we create an authority file for Baker Hughes and a knowledge base, one or more knowledge base from Baker Hughes project, in order to add them in the pipeline and trigger just these two, so one authority file and one knowledge base, we need to use this interface to add, correct?
Correct. And just to actually make it easier, go back here. Right. All right, so this is a document that explains this whole process that I'm going to go through. So we're using Magellan Pipeline Custom Config. So it actually goes through the different steps to actually use it, and I'll put that on the core as well. So it's up there as well. All right. Oh, I already did. It's right there. Okay. I did that already. Never mind. So this actually gives us the out of the box. If you notice, we're doing concept extraction, and then for knowledge bases, we're using IPTC and business finance and LGTPN, and so we're actually doing. So this is the default one that we actually want to do. And then in your case, you probably you might or might not want all of these. So this is the format is exactly the same as the format of the REST call. It's the same thing. The methods section is exactly the same regardless of whether I'm using a REST call or a, where's the end of methods? Right here, whether it's a REST call or a configuration, right? And then that's how I get the profile. And then if I want to modify an existing profile, this is what I do. I put, and then I put this in application JSON and application XML, sorry. And then I could try it out by putting a profile ID and then in here putting another thing. The key part here is that if you notice in the, sorry, go back to the get, right? There's a profile version. So this is version 0. If you're modifying a version, you always, when you paste it in, you always use the current version in that. So if I wanted to, so let's do Control-A, Control-C, right? And then go into the put, right? So the put would be OTIF _en. And then in here, I'm going to do the same thing. Nope, I didn't copy it. right? And here, if you notice, version 0, it has to be the same. So if I actually wanted, in this case, I don't want to do sentiment, right? Let's just say, or I don't want to do the summarizer, right? So I'm just going to delete this. So end of end finder is the same, is the next to the sentiment. And now I'm going to execute this, and hopefully, what didn't it like? Right. So now if I do a get up here, execute again, it's version 1. Right? It's the same stuff, but it's version 1.
Okay. So I think it's just a matter of learning or copying the syntax. I have, I think, last question. Where I miss a point. Let's suppose that I create, I don't know, Becker Hughes underscore English profile, where I define that I have just to trigger this profile in the pipeline from Becker Hughes polling in the file system.
So currently, unfortunately, in 16.6, it only uses one profile, whatever the default one,
okay,
and that's the OTIF one. If you notice, there's an OTIF underscore EN and an OTIF underscore FR, so the different languages can actually use slightly different ones, but it's the same one. So we detect the language and call the appropriate profile based on that language. However, in 16.7, when you create the job, you could specify which profile you want to use, and then you're set. You just have all the profiles together. We'll get a list of profiles, and when you're creating the job, and you can say this job is using this profile. So, for instance, I have one job that's is analyzing contracts, and another job is doing something analyzing news stories. So I want completely different profiles. I don't want to have to change the pipeline every day, right? So I want to be able for each job to specify which profile to use, and that's something that we added in 16.7.
Okay, it's good to know for the POC. Anyway, the project will be, if we get it, will be in 16.7 for sure, because it's available. So, but for the POC, we need to get this in mind for the configuration.
Okay. And I think that's all I wanted to cover today. Are there any final questions, requests?
From my side, no. From Reply?
No.
From me, neither.
All right. Thank you very much, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen. I hope this was helpful to you. I will stop the recording, and as soon as I get the recording, I will